One of the biggest struggles I hear from people, whether they're trying to lose fat, build muscle, or just improve their overall health, is getting in enough protein. You know you need it. You probably heard a million times that protein is essential for muscle recovery, keeping you full and helping you hit your fitness goals. But actually hitting your protein target, I feel like that's where most people get stuck. Most people just wing it, and by the end of the day, they realize they're way under on protein and over on carbs and fat, or just don't even realize how little protein they're eating. So, today we're breaking down exactly how to get more protein throughout the day, super simple strategies to make it easy, and some of our go to high protein meals and snacks to help you stay on track. So if you ever struggle with hitting your protein, this episode is going to make it way simpler for you.
Yeah, and whether you're trying to build muscle, lose weight, or just simply stay healthy, protein really is that game changer, right? So for most people, getting enough can be pretty tough, especially when life gets busy, or for a lot of people, they just don't really know where to start or how to add more protein.
Yeah. How much protein do you eat a day? And walk us through how you get that.
Yeah, so I typically get anywhere from 190 to 200 grams of protein, probably closer to like 200. I like to start off with a protein shake. And there's some days where I don't. I'll have a different type of meal, but I've done that since I was like 16 years old, and it's just kind of consistency, and I enjoy it. I like the way it tastes good. I like to start off the day with it. I feel good. I feel satiated for a little while. And that's, I usually add a few scoops of protein powder. So that usually gets me about 60 grams of protein to start off the day. And I think that's a big win starting off the day with that much protein. Even if the rest of the day is not great, I still start off with a huge amount. And then I usually have a couple snacks throughout the day that'll be anywhere from like 20 to 25 grams protein. That could be a protein bar, or it could be, cottage cheese, a yogurt, something similar to that. And then my lunch will be typically 45 grams of protein. For the most part, I'll have a lot of fruit with that at lunch. Just for whatever reason, I enjoy having a lot of fruit at my meal at lunch. And then at dinner, I'll have another 50 to 60 grams usually. And that is usually more variety. That could be ground beef or steak or chicken, fish. I like fish a lot. I just don't eat it as much, or seafood in general. So it's a lot more like ground beef, types of chicken, steak, red meat, stuff like that.
Yeah, pretty solid. I feel like I'm pretty dialed in with that too. I'm honestly getting anywhere from 175 to 80 basically every single day with ease, and that may be a little bit overkill for what I need, but I've just really been enjoying it. And just like I love all the foods I eat, and so I've had no issue with that, and I've just seen amazing results, especially since bumping it up a little. Again, like it's super easy for me to hit this. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, I weigh 200 pounds. So how the hell am I supposed to get 200 grams of protein?" And you just walk you through how you do yours, and kind of same here. Like I'm only eating 2,200, 2,300 calories a day. I'm able to get 180, 200 grams of protein if I needed to with ease. My go-tos are just typically I'll have a bunch of eggs in the morning, and then I'll have some sort of beef bowl, whether that's a burger bowl or something along those lines, some sort of burrito bowl. I'll do a fish stir fry, and then throughout the day, I'm also just having some protein snacks too. Like you have your protein shake in the morning. I have my creamy, which is basically a protein shake, but just a nice cream form. And then Greek yogurt as well with some fruit. And then I usually have a protein bar, especially if I'm on the go in the morning or before the gym, if I don't have, like, if I don't want to sit and eat a full meal. So simple, easy, how
Yeah,
done.
and we'll talk about it later. And you said you probably get a little more than you need, and I'm probably the same. We'll talk about how much you should probably be getting. But like you said, like I just feel really good on high protein meals, and I have a little bit of carbs and fat to balance it out. I mean, I think that's the most important thing. After you get the protein, then you kind of experiment with where you want to be with the carbs and the fat. But I just feel better when I'm on a higher protein diet.
Yeah, 100% same. And I feel like it's just, I think there are studies that show it, like even going above the general range that people recommend for protein can be beneficial for just if you want to get to that next level as far as muscle gains and everything. Again, it's not essential, but there can be benefits for eating a little bit more than you technically need. But again, it all comes down to what works well for you, what you feel best on. And this is just what works for us.
Yeah, and you really can't go over. If you eat too much protein or way more protein than you need, there used to be that old myth, hey, you can only eat like 30 grams of protein. After that, you're just wasting it.
So crazy.
And yeah, it's crazy. So, I mean, you can really eat way more than that. It really then it just comes to digestion. If you're eating, tons, 60, 70, 80 grams of protein or 100 grams of protein in one meal and you don't feel great afterwards, then you're like, okay, that's a little bit too much for me. But in terms of, how it works in your body, it's totally fine. And you're not going to waste it or not. It's not going to be detrimental to anything.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, there's no limit on how much protein you eat until you notice, like, if there's any issues with digestion or anything like that. So, yeah, that's a good point. What's been going on with you this week? Anything new to report?
Well, it's finally getting warmer, which is amazing for me. I've gotten a lot more sunshine this week than I've had in like 5 months. So my mood has probably been better. I feel a lot better with that. But also, this is kind of like a primo time of year for me in terms of sports because I'm huge baseball fans. We got baseball season, spring training starting, and then we have March Madness coming up. And so and then it's getting warmer. It's kind of like everything's like hitting together. I'm like, yes, and then we'll have summer. So it's everything's starting to ramp up in a good way. So I'm super excited about that. But I was thinking about baseball season, and I love going to professional sporting events. But living where I do, I don't have that option that much. So when I do get to go, I kind of eat whatever I want. I kind of plan out my day, knowing that I'm going to have something that I probably would normally not have. It's probably not going to be high in protein type of thing. And so a lot of times I'll go to a professional baseball game or football game, something like that. I'll eat like a hot dog or a foot long or something, silly like that. And I was thinking, what about yourself? When you go to, or I don't know if you go to sporting events or if you go to a concert or something like that, do you ever eat out like at something like that, or no? You're like, I don't ever go.
Yeah, like I don't really go to a ton of sporting events or even like concerts. They always have like just really shitty food. So I'm like, I don't even want to have that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's usually just be like if I want to go try a new place for dinner or something locally, like I'll go and do that. Or like if I'm out with friends or something, like I'll grab something. But other than that, like nothing crazy there.
Well, if you go to a baseball game or something like that, a good foot long or a good hot dog always hits the spot.
Noted, noted.
I'll
And
tell you a quick. I'm sorry. I'll tell you a quick funny story. One time I was in Atlanta. I was going to a Braves game, and the concession lines are like ridiculous. And I was standing in line forever, and I came back to my seat. I wanted to go later to get something to eat. And I'm like, I'm not going back. So I was like, I'm getting a couple foot longs. I'm sure someone's going to want something, and that way I don't have to get back up. Get back, and no one that I'm with wants anything to eat. They're like, we're done. So I'm sitting here with like these 2 foot longs. And I'm not going to just waste a foot long, so I ended up throwing down 2 foot longs, which tasted pretty good, but it probably didn't feel the best after that. But
that's
you know,
impressive. Has to be done though. Can't let it go to waste, like you
had to
said.
be done. Had to take care of business.
And for March Madness, do you do like the whole brackets? Like I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but I'm assuming you participate in all of that.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not any good. Yeah, it's tons of fun. I love doing it, and especially the first few days where there's like games all day long and so many teams playing. It's just a lot of fun. I really enjoy that atmosphere, and of course I have to, play the bracket and see if I can get lucky one day. But yeah, it's just I always enjoy it.
Have you won a lot of money on that before?
No. No,
Immediately no.
Marcus usually takes all my money. I can't just watch and like not root for people, And so there's obviously there's some teams that I really like that I always root for, some schools. But as many teams are playing, 6-14, like if my team gets knocked out or they're not good that year or something like that, like I can't just watch and not root for people. So this gives me, every single game, this gives me someone to root for, and sometimes I do okay. I get pretty far, and then I do something to screw it up. But yeah, I don't win much money.
This year is the one.
Yes. What about yourself? What's going on with you?
Not much. Mostly just stressing about the speech, to be honest. But I finally have my rough draft written. So, like, the whole draft
There
is
you go.
done. So now I can kind of get to practicing and building out my slides and everything.
Now, how are you going to practice? Are you going to look in the mirror? Are you just going to say it out loud? Are you going to go for walks and say it? Or what are you going to do?
Yeah, probably all of the above, to be honest. I've been doing walks and just reading it out loud, but I'm going to have to do that multiple times a day. And then I also want to, like, eventually I'll need to have my slides and, like, go through the slides as I'm doing it and just pretend like I'm presenting it. And I'll probably do that pretty frequently as well. One other funny thing that I was thinking about is I might just record myself talking through the whole thing as well, and then just like have the recording and play it, like even just when I'm doing other work or maybe when I'm sleeping too. Maybe it'll get into my
There
head.
you go.
I don't know, like anything at this point because I'm worried about it.
Now, you don't have to memorize it, do you? Or you can have note cards and stuff? Or are you just afraid you're going to lose track of something?
I think I'm gonna do note cards. Like I feel like it doesn't make it as official, but I think I'll definitely need it. So I'm gonna do that, but I'm also still worried I'm gonna just black out when I'm up there and just forget everything. So I want to be overly prepared.
Yeah, I get it. Well, I think slides always help too. So if you do kind of get nervous or something, you look at the slide, you're like, oh yeah, like I know what I'm talking about now.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll, we'll see. But yeah, I'm gonna try to do a little bit of like I'm trying to pull back on a lot of other work stuff. Great thing is our rosters are fully full. Like our team has been growing, which is amazing, and I'm so excited about that. We're in an interesting spot in the business where we can't take on any more clients or anything until I hire on someone else, and so I'm not going to rush that process. And I figured, all right, this is a good period for where I can just kind of pull back a little bit, especially because I've been going so hard. So I'm gonna like my calendar is all cleared from calls. I'm gonna just pull back on a lot of the general day-to-day work stuff that I'm doing. I say it's going to be a work break, but in reality, I don't think it is going to be. I think it's going to be more of just working on other things that I haven't been able to get to, particularly the speech, just because I have been really stressing about that and I have not had any time or energy to pour into that. So hopefully, I'll be able to put a lot of work into that and just other stuff that I've been neglecting the last few months. And hopefully, my main intention in kind of pulling back from everything too is just be able to pour more into relationships and experiences and the stuff that like there has been so many things that I've wanted to do that has been truly eating at me because I have not had any time or energy to pour into them. And so hopefully pulling back on some of those areas will allow me to pour a little bit more into those and grow those. So that's going to be my intent over the next month or so, and then I have my Egypt trip, and then we'll get back to the grind after that.
Yeah, so it'll be kind of it'll be a different type of busy, right?
Yeah,
Which
that's
is
the plan.
yeah, it's fun. It's kind of exciting,
Yeah, it's exciting. It's also definitely a challenge for me too, not actively growing the business. I've never like went through a season like that. I think it's gonna kill me. That's like I'm trying to reframe it as like I'm not necessarily growing that, but I'm growing in all these other areas, and it's essential
Right.
at this point. So I think it'll be good. It'll be a good growing experience overall for me, just managing this and kind of going through this different season. So yeah, it'll be cool.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I think you'll enjoy it.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about protein. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So before we kind of dive into like the how, let's kind of talk quickly cover why protein is so important. I mean, I'm sure everyone out there has heard protein being all over social media. Hey, you need more protein. I mean, I think that message is getting out there a lot now, right? But protein isn't just for bodybuilders. It's not for someone that's just trying to get really big, really strong. It's really essential for everyone. And so whether you're trying to build muscle, lose fat, or just simply stay healthy, protein is very important and very beneficial to you. So just a couple of things. I mean, obviously, it supports muscle repair and muscle growth, right? It keeps you full longer, so satiated, right? It reduces the cravings throughout the day. Boosts metabolism. We've talked about that. It helps with the fat loss. And then there's other things too. One of the things we don't talk about much is it strengthens skin, hair, nails, improves the immune system. So I mean, it's a powerful thing to have, and so I think it's very important that you get the protein that you need for your body.
The most important macronutrient for sure. And I know we're talking about how much should we be getting. Generally, the rule is roughly 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. If you're trying to build muscle, we want to kind of get around that range. And it depends, obviously. If you have a lot of weight to lose, then it may not make sense to be hitting exactly 1 gram per pound of body weight. You may want to be closer to zero point 0.7, zero point 0.8. But again, you want to kind of be in that general range. And again, you can go above, like we were talking about earlier, too. There's no limit to how much you can have. If you're in a fat loss phase, especially sticking on the higher side will help preserve muscle because we don't want to lose muscle when we're losing fat. We want to make sure that it's primarily fat and not just losing a bunch of weight, which is fat and muscle. So basically, if you weigh 150 pounds, you should be aiming for at least, like, at the very minimum, like 105 to 150 grams of protein per day. And I think for most people, that number could sound way higher than what they're used to eating. But that's kind of why we want to go through how to make it easy. Like we said, we can I get 180, you get 200 grams of protein a day with ease. So we're going to walk you through some of our simple ways in how to do so.
Yeah, and the zero point 0.7, zero point 0.8 to 1 gram. A lot of times we just say 1 gram because it's excuse me, it's easy math, right? And it's what is zero point 0.8 times 180? It's just so it's just easier. And that being said, too, if you're typically getting in 80 grams of protein and you need to get in 170, that's going to be really hard to kind of get there right away. So sometimes we kind of recommend starting slower and say, okay, let's go to 100 first, then 120, and kind of moving up from there. But that's a good range to kind of want to go. And then, like we said, if you go over it, you're good. No problem there at all.
Exactly.
All right, so we're going to talk about 5 ways to add more protein to your day. All right, and the first one is just, make your life a lot simpler. Just eat more of what you're already eating. So you eat a 4-ounce steak, 4-ounce chicken, something like that. You're getting about 20 grams of protein-ish, somewhere around there. Instead of trying to come up with all these different types of meals and these new recipes and things like that, just double the amount of steak you're eating, double the amount of chicken you're eating. If 4 ounce steak, have 8 ounces of steak. If you're having, 2 eggs, 4 or 6 eggs in the morning type of thing. Really easy to do without changing really anything about your meal, just eating more of that protein. And then prioritizing the protein at every meal. Really focusing on that is kind of the centerpiece of the meal. So instead of just like adding protein, okay, I have my meal and now I need to make sure I get enough protein with this. Every meal should start with, okay, what's my protein source? How much am I going to have of it? And then after that, you kind of fill in the rest of it, right? So some of just, go-to protein sources: chicken, turkey, lean beef, bison, pork tenderloin, salmon, shrimp, tuna. I mean, there's a lot of options, right? Eggs, egg whites, a lot of dairy if you can have dairy. Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, string cheese, whole milk. If you're a vegetarian or you only want to eat plant-based, things like tofu, tempeh, lentils, beans, seitan, a lot of different options, right? So I think, and then if someone's hearing that, they might say, that's a lot of stuff. Like, what am I doing here? Kind of a little overwhelmed here. So I think you want to start off by saying, okay, I'm going to build my meal. So first, pick your protein. Okay, so let's say you're going with some ground beef, right? Then you add your carb. I typically like to add like a vegetable to it, vegetable or fruit. And then I kind of round it off. I want a little rice or some potatoes or quinoa or something like that. Add some healthy fat to it, maybe some avocado or olive oil, maybe a few nuts, and you got your meal. And it's a fantastic, really rounded, balanced meal. But again, you're focusing on getting in that protein, 40, 50 grams of protein, and then kind of filling in the rest of it around there.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of people notice as we go through these 5 points is it's all so simple. Like, there's no crazy, sexy hack to getting in more protein. Like you said, it's just doubling up on the portions you're eating. If you're eating 2 eggs, have 4. If you have a little bit of Greek yogurt, like do 2 servings. It's just simple stuff like that. And so another one is just sneaking protein into other foods that you're already having. So for example, protein powder is a great one, so versatile, which you can add into so many things: oatmeal, coffee, Greek yogurt, add into dips. Greek yogurt is one too that is very versatile too with dips. Like, I made a dip the other day with just some fresh dill, lemon juice, and plain Greek yogurt. It was bomb. Had it with some salmon, some veggies, some rice. And so that's just easy way to get in extra protein. So you can make all sorts of dips with that. Even adding bone broth to rice or just sipping on that too is a great hack. But I always make my rice with bone broth instead of just regular rice. And Greek yogurt is another good swap for sour cream too. So just stuff like that. And again, adding protein powder into whatever you want can make it really easy as well.
Yeah, and right there, our first 2 tips, you're not changing your daily meals at all. You're just tweaking what you're already eating a little bit. So again, we really want to make this as simple as possible. All right, so the next one is make your snacks count. So a lot of times people get stuck because they only eat the protein at meals, and their snacks are just really, really high carb based items that just don't fill you up very well, right? Focusing again on that high protein snack, so things like Greek yogurt, cottage cheese. We talked about this the other day. I thought it was crazy. You've never had cottage cheese and pineapple.
Never.
Such a good combo. So good. Try that out. But a lot of people will add different things to cottage cheese and Greek yogurt. They'll add some fruit. They'll add a little peanut butter or peanut butter powder, a couple chocolate chips. There's a lot of different things you can add to that to make it taste really good. Things like, and you can even add protein powder into those. And that's actually a lot of those yogurts now that you go to the store and got by the cups, and you're like, how do they get from going from like 10 years ago, you could buy a thing of yogurt and it's like 7 grams of protein, right? And now they're like 20 grams. Well, it's because they're adding a little bit of whey protein to it, and so those are perfect, and things like beef jerky, even like things like deli meat roll-ups or hard-boiled eggs. There's just a lot of options. And so when you think about those snacks, go with the high protein snacks. Make sure they're available. Make sure they're easy to grab. And again, you do a couple of those a day. That's an extra 40 grams of protein, and you get closer and closer to that goal.
Yep, easy. Number 4 is just, when you cook, make extra servings of protein. This kind of ties into what you were saying earlier about building out your meals and making sure that we're prioritizing a good protein source. It's always important to have stuff on deck for that. So when you make your dinner, just make double portions of that and use the leftovers for breakfast. For example, putting ground beef in your eggs or stuff like that. Also, batch cooking your protein sources so that way you always have stuff on deck and you're never like scrambling or low on protein. Like I always have some sort of frozen prepped protein in my freezer just in case. It's usually ground beef or fish or something that I've already made, but it's always good to have those options on deck. And then even if you need something like convenient or on the go, rotisserie chicken, snag a whole one of those bad boys, or canned tuna, or just any sort of pre-cooked meats. Like there's so many great options out there for that, so that way you always have something on deck.
Yeah, and there's obviously kind of a hierarchy of what's going to be better for you, what's going to taste, good. But there's just a lot of already pre-cooked meats, chickens, things like that. In the freezer section you can have that just ready to go. Even just going out, even grocery, gas station, you can buy tons of beef jerky, and I mean you can buy hard-boiled eggs already pre-made, ready to go. So there are a lot of options other places if you haven't planned or you're out somewhere where you just don't have that available. All right, and another thing, I mentioned that I like having a protein shake in the morning. That's just kind of my go-to. But I also like the idea of having it kind of as a backup. What I mean by that is, let's say you go through it, because obviously we would recommend whole foods is better, for you, as much whole food as possible. But if you do that throughout the day, kind of go through that check at the end of the day, when you're like, oh, I'm 30 grams short, or I'm 20 grams short, or 40, then a whey protein shake is a great way to make that up. You're done. It's easy, quick, for most people, easily digestible, and you got their protein. It kind of just fills in those gaps at the end of the day.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I've been doing my creamy. I'm full on the creamy addiction. It's out of control.
What? No, what is that? Tell us again. What is in that?
Yeah, so the Ninja Creamy is this magical blender type thing that basically turns anything into ice cream. There are so many different combinations on what you can make. Any like all sorts of different kinds of ice cream too, like sorbets and stuff. I haven't experimented with everything just because I always keep things stupid simple. But you can make any sort of combination of like flavors, ice cream, types of stuff. So it's really cool. But basically, what I do, the only way I make mine is I will just take Fairlife milk and then protein powder and just mix it together. Again, like you can get a lot more fancy and make it, I'm sure you can make it taste a lot better and just like get all crazy with it, but I just keep it simple and it tastes really good just as is. So yeah, I'll take my Legion protein powder that I have and just Fairlife milk, and then I'll just make different combinations of the protein powder. Sometimes I'll do the chocolate milk versus just the regular. So yeah, you just blend it up and you can add any mix-ins that you want, and so it is phenomenal. Best way to drink a protein shake, I'd say.
It sounds good. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to say it right, but there's a drink called affogato, I think. I'm probably pushing that, but it's basically like coffee and ice cream. Have you ever had that before?
No, never even heard of it.
Oh, okay. Well, you'll have to look at it. It's so good. I was thinking, man, you could do that in the morning. It'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
Another thing too, though, a lot of times we forget. I overlook this all the time. Is whole milk. How great of a protein source that is as well, and you can add it or just have it, on the side.
Yeah, that's true. I always forget about that. I feel like the Fairlife milk has a decent amount of protein too, which is why I tend to gravitate toward that.
Okay, and then kind of a bonus discussion is if you start off the day with a really high protein breakfast, it makes it so much easier throughout the day to make sure you can get your amount of protein in. If you start off with a very low amount of protein, then you're just basically playing catch up all throughout the day. So front loading it early in the day, a lot of people, I think when you think of breakfast items, you think of things like cereal or toast or bagels or things like that, very high carb items, very low protein items, right? And so, I mean, it makes sense. People eat a lot of that, and then in a couple hours they're starving, and basically it kind of sets them up for just cravings throughout the day. As opposed to if you start off with that high protein, more satiated, you feel fuller throughout the day, and those cravings kind of disappear. You're not as hungry throughout the day. So it's a huge win. So start your day off 30, 40, 50 grams of protein. Eggs, egg whites are great. You can have way more than two, eggs. I mean, 6, 7, 8 eggs, you can add, you talked about making food before. Let's say you have some ground beef from the night before, put it in a pan, add a couple eggs to it, kind of make it like breakfast style. I've even done that and just drizzled a little bit of like sugar-free syrup on it to make it even taste more like, breakfast, like in my mind or whatever. There's a lot of really good chicken sausage or turkey sausages, things like that. You can make protein pancakes. There's a lot of great recipes out there. A lot of them with cottage cheese. Cottage cheese has become popular again. I've made a lot of cottage cheese pancakes that are really good. You can do the pre-made like Kodiak cakes. I like those a lot. Of course, Greek yogurt, berries, You can even make that the night before, some kind of like chia pudding type thing. Of course, my go-to is a protein shake. If you have a smoothie, you just want to make sure that it's not all fruit, right? Sometimes people say, "Oh, I had a smoothie for breakfast. That was great." I was like, "Yeah, it's great, but it's all basically carbs, right?" So add that Greek yogurt to it or cottage cheese or something, and then add your fruit to it. And then, of course, talked about cottage cheese and things like pineapple or other fruit. Whatever fruit you want is great with it. So I really think it's a huge win if you can start your day off with a really good, high, solid protein packed meal. It's kind of like working out in the morning. Again, you don't have to, but if your schedule works out and you can do that, you get your workout in the morning, a really high protein breakfast in the morning, and you've set your day up for success.
Yeah. So overall, like I said, none of this is revolutionary or crazy, but it really just is these small, simple swaps, like just doubling up your protein sources. I think that is the biggest one. You don't need to add in a bunch of crazy stuff. Just double up on what you're doing now. Find these different swaps. Basically, everything that you're typically eating in a day, I'm guaranteed there is a swap that you can make that's going to make it a lot healthier and high protein for almost everything. Even like your favorite recipes, even like pizzas. Like I always do a high protein pizza that I love. So there's always options for whatever you want to eat. There's a way to make it healthier and high protein. You just got to get a little bit resourceful and do some planning up front. Basically, hitting your protein goal doesn't need to be complicated. With these small tweaks, you can effortlessly get enough protein every day and stay on track with your fitness goals and overall just feel your best. And if you're looking for a space where like-minded people working towards the same journey as you, that's exactly why we built out our private school community. I'm posting new content every week, running challenges. You get access to all kinds of resources, workouts, meal guides, expert guidance, including our high protein recipe book, which includes my pizza recipe, all the stuff that I typically eat. I put everything in there as well as a bunch of other recipes that I give my clients. So if you want access to that, it's completely free to join. I'll link that in the show notes. And then just share this with someone else who needs to hear it and needs to get in their protein. And as always, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you guys next week.